Well, over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, and certainly over the last few years, as things have ebbed and flowed in the economy coming out of the thick of the COVID crisis, the real estate market has certainly been one of those different markets and one of those different industries that's had a lot of ups and downs, including in commercial real estate. One local expert is here now to join us to talk about how that's impacting us right here in Oakland County and in southeastern Michigan. Joining us now on the program is Ciura, the principal at CC Consulting. Cindy, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you, Tyler. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about this. But let's just start with a little bit of your background. How did you get involved in real estate in general, but specifically commercial real estate?
Right. Well, Tyler, I've been doing this for a little over 25 years. I worked for some of the large developers in town, Showstaff Brothers and Company, the Forbes Company, the folks that own the Somerset Collection. And I went out on my own about 15 years ago. And my background is marketing. I've always enjoyed marketing. And what I've always enjoyed is bringing people to the state of Michigan, especially retailers that aren't currently represented here. And so this is how I spend my time. I'm now currently working in 8 states in addition to Michigan, but I cut my teeth here. I've done work in Oakland County. I do a tremendous amount of work in downtown Birmingham. And I've done a lot of work in the city of Detroit as well.
So we think about those hotbeds for commercial businesses, for retail,
Right.
for restaurants, and so on. You mentioned downtown Birmingham. You think Royal Oak. You think Ferndale. And
Right.
you think those sorts of places. And then there's up and coming places all throughout southeastern Michigan as well. What about southeastern Michigan is so attractive to these kinds of businesses?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tyler, the one thing I have to say, and I think it's very exciting for our industry. I mentioned I've been doing this for quite some time. So I can recall going to conferences even as long as 15 years ago or so, and you'd say you're from Michigan, and you didn't always have a exciting welcome by retailers because they didn't view Michigan as one of the top retail industries in the US. That has all changed. And I am continuously surprised to see the wonderful level of retailers that we have coming into our state now. When you look at downtown Birmingham, for example, within 2 years, we're going to have a 50,000 square foot RH store. If you're not familiar with RH, it's a former Restoration Hardware. It's an anchor department store. Those of you who remember Birmingham in the day, they had Jacobson's. I mean, once again, Birmingham's going to have an anchor department store, and it is wildly successful. I recently did a deal with CB2, which is Crate and Barrel's urban concept, 8,000 square feet. It opened a month ago in downtown Birmingham, and there was a handful of other retailers. Just one quick example is Faherty. Faherty is a new hot up and coming concept that appeals to men, women, and children's clothing. All of the fabrics are, sustainable. They're all wonderful, comfortable, easy to breathe, easy to wear fabrics. And it's just, if you haven't seen it, it's located right on Old Woodward. It's an amazing store, Faherty.
We're joined on the program by Cindy Ciura, the principal at CC Consulting, talking about commercial real estate, particularly here in the state of Michigan. You can get more information and consultation from Cindy and the team at CC Consulting by visiting their website, ccconsultgroup.com, ccconsultgroup.com for more information. And in terms of where the market is at right now, we know in the housing market, it's been kind of up and down. It's been a buyer's market. It's been a seller's market. It's been nobody's market. How has that really been on the commercial real estate side?
Well, I think, residential has become more and more important. You'll see retail developments that have a residential component are really, it's kind of like where it's at right now in the industry. And I think that you see surrounding retail, you see tremendous residential development. And so that you see mixed use developments are really kind of the buzzword of our industry right now. You see the development, the malls have gone through a transition. The malls have, many B and C malls, what we say not as successful malls have closed. And many of those mixed use developments have actually been developed into other projects that have a residential component to them. So, retail continues to evolve, but like I mentioned before, development, especially retail development in Michigan, is extremely strong.
Joining us on the program is Cindy Ciura, the principal at CC Consulting, as we talk about commercial real estate here in the state of Michigan. Currently, given the strength that you mentioned of the commercial real estate industry in Michigan and that fervor from businesses both around the state already and those outside looking to come into Michigan, what are some of the current challenges being faced in the real estate market on the commercial side, and how's that ultimately impacting the consumers?
Well, I got to tell you, as with everything, when more and more people are interested in coming into our state, more and more brands are looking at coming into our state, that has caused some of the retail rental rates to go up. And as a whole, as a state, whether you're in Detroit, whether you're in Oakland County, Macomb County, or such, you will find that even from the times of what rental rates were before COVID till now, they've gone up significantly. So, I mean, rents are higher. It's harder on a mom and pop business because the nationals can sometimes take the hits of a higher rental rate, but many times for mom and pop businesses, it's more difficult. The other thing that's it's a little bit of a change in what has been happening, but a lot of the retailers are asking, if you want us, Mr. Retailer, to come to your project, we want the landlord to contribute. We call it TI, tenant improvements. Those numbers, and they're based on the square footage, while they might have been $25, $30 a foot, now they can be $100 a foot or $150 a foot. Very significant investment from the landlord that the retailers are now requiring.
And then in terms of those mom and pop shops, because those are really important to cities,
Absolutely.
keeping them in the cities and in these municipalities, but also
Right.
allowing them
Right.
to compete for quality spaces, given
Right.
that rent is raising
Yep.
in our state
Yep.
and across the globe.
Yep.
What would you say, or what would your advice be to those mom and pop shops looking to remain competitive, or at least be competitive in commercial real estate, to put them in the best position in these thriving cities like a Birmingham or a Royal Oak?
Right. I think two things. Number one, I would say look for smaller locations. Smaller locations as a whole, just as rental rates go up, are more popular than larger. And so I think mom and pops can generally look for, smaller opportunities. And I also think that some of the cities that maybe don't have the rents that some of the more expensive cities have are also a phenomenal option. And I mentioned as a whole, the state is going up, but the Ferndales, the Berkeleys, some of the other cities that may not have as high of a rent as like a Birmingham are wonderful opportunities as well.
More information and ways you can get in contact with CC Consulting, including Cindy, can be found at ccconsultgroup.com, ccconsultgroup.com for more information. In terms of where Michigan is at, how is that both going along with the trends across the U.S., but also in what ways is Michigan kind of bucking those trends and going in its own path?
Yeah, I truly believe that, Michigan is standing out. I just had a national broker who represents some absolutely phenomenal brands from New York call me, asked me, they wanted to talk about, opportunities within Michigan. They wanted to talk about, the Canadian customer, which I think is interesting. Metro Detroit is a half an hour away from the bridge. And the Canadian customer, which is looking for options and frequently comes to Michigan, is something that retailers are taking notice of, and with good reason.
And so for those businesses that are looking to take that next step, move to that next great location, how can consulting with a group like yours help them make that step forward?
Well, I frequently have people come to me and say, whether they're a mom and pop looking for a business, to suggest a location for them if they're looking at coming into the Michigan market. And then on the flip side, I have developers saying, I'm building a project. Who do you think are the right and appropriate retailers that I should select for my project? So you have kind of people coming from both ways. But yes, like you said, that's what we do. We are commercial brokers, so we have our pulse on, I would say, most of the major markets within our state, and we'll definitely, be able to talk to anybody, that might be interested in looking at retail currently.
Well, Cindy, a couple more minutes with you before we need to wrap things up today. Any
All right.
lasting advice or other things we haven't talked about in terms of commercial real estate in Michigan at this time that we should know about?
Well, I think I'll just mention because it's a topic that a lot of people have talked to, and that is brick and mortar retail, which is, actual storefronts versus online shopping. If you can recall, even before the pandemic, people were saying, oh, shopping's going away. We're not going to see retail stores. We're going to be doing everything 100% online. And I think, quite honestly, and especially after COVID, we know nothing can be further than that. While online shopping, of course, is popular, 3/4 of us shop for our clothing and other items in person. So the bulk of 70% of shopping is basically done in person, and a third of that is done online. And the other thing that's interesting to mention is, what new brands are coming down the pike. Many of those new brands had started, I'll give an example, like a Warby Parker. Warby Parker, the eyeglass company, wildly successful, started as an online retailer. And they know that there's, great success to having great locations. And so they've been opening, especially in Michigan, they've been opening other locations. And so I think to see, these online brands now selecting Amazon, for example, they've opened 2 apparel stores. You can get an Amazon apparel store in Ohio and in Los Angeles. So, and they look at rolling that out across the country. So it's interesting to see the online brands actually deciding to have stores.
ccconsultgroup.com is their website. You can also call them at 248-758-2358 for more information and consultation. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.